tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn and welcome. In the studio, waiting to be profiled, is writer, producer, director Nigol Bezjian and artist Kim Abeles. Nigol Bezjian has a master's degree from UCLA Graduate School of Film and Television, which he attended after graduating from the School of Visual Arts in New York City. Film is his passion, and he's developed it by working in every aspect of production. Did you have to get coffee when you first started working?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Is that part of the deal?
Yeah. You know, I started working at very young age in the stage and then later on in film. And I started from the very, just by watching first, then being allowed to bring coffee to the elderly people.
You really did?
Yes, yeah. And gradually, you know, worked as an actor in the stage for a very short time. And then I decided that I want to be a filmmaker.
Is that how it all happened? Where was that?
This was in Aleppo, where I was born, at a very young age. For some reason, I didn't even know what the job or the work involved. But I knew that, you know, I wanted to make films, and I wanted to be the one who makes them.
Was your family involved in any kind of filmmaking? Or?
No, not at all.
How did you have this desire then? How did you end up in a theater?
Well, it was a community theater. And they picked me up when I was very young because I was, I talk in very animated manners, and also they tell me I was a good storyteller.
Oh, so that began. Were you writing?
I used to imitate people a lot, you know, in families, gathering situations, and people encouraged me to be in the theater.
Did you, was the theater in, I know you're Armenian, was it in Arabic language or
in Armenian?
In
Armenian, yes. It was, you know, ethnic community theater group in Aleppo. So that's where it all started.
So that really kind of kindled your fires, and
yes.
Did you start writing then at that point?
I have done attempts at writing, you know, but I didn't really know what the screenplay looks like at that time. Later on, you know, when I was a little older, people always took me to the movies to be entertained. My neighbors, cousins, relatives, my father, you know, everybody used to take me to see movies.
Was it like to babysit you? Or
yes,
was
babysit me.
To babysit you.
Yes. And in our neighborhood, there was a man used to run Charlie Chaplin films on 8mm films.
Click.
Right. And then on Sundays, I was, you know, kind of bad boy. They would give me money to go there and leave them alone.
Oh, so they would just send you away.
Yeah, send me away. And then I would come back and imitate Chaplin to my friends, you know, and invent my own things. And when I was a kid, I also had a peep box, you know. In it, I used to cut out the pictures from the magazines and glue them on a long piece of paper and roll them from one side to another.
You really did. So it was really part of your kinetic eye-hand thing, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of meant to be, it
sounds
like.
I suppose so.
Yeah, did you have access to other American films, or what films were they? Were they American films that you would go out to see?
At very young age, you know, we used to get this is back in Aleppo again, we used to get lots of American films, but then there were all these political changes that happened in the Middle East. And American films, Western films, in particular American films, were banned. So we did not get to see that many. We got lots of East European and Soviet films. But then Beirut, you know, Lebanon was the thriving country of the Middle East, and with the openness to everything. So I used to go on weekends. I used to find things to sell, finance my own trip, get on a taxi for 8 hours ride from Aleppo to Beirut. In few days, see 5, 6, 7, 8 American films, and come back to Aleppo and recreate the story of the film and act out the parts to my friends who did not have access to see these films.
Is that right? So you
Yes.
did just do this process of storytelling and
Right.
remembering. Would you see the films more than once or twice, or did you have time?
No, but I had good memory. You know, I remember. I remember this much later on. I saw in Beirut in one day. I saw Cabaret, then I went to see The Godfather, and then I saw The Conversation in one day.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
And all intense movies,
intense
though.
movies. I was completely blown out.
I mean, they were fabulous,
Fabulous, yeah. I was daydreaming for days.
too. Were you still a teenager, Nigol?
Yeah.
You were still a
Yeah.
teenager.
Yes.
Then when did you come to America?
I arrived to America when I was a little older than 17, between 17 and 18, I guess.
You were still in your
Yeah,
teens, too.
yes.
So you did a lot of your schooling here.
Well, I finished my high school here in South Boston High School at the busing year that in Boston. It was a big experience for me to see American, the busing and racial problems and issues. I was just in the midst of it. And the first film that I ever made was in that high school. It was about the busing. Because I was inside, you know, and the media was not allowed to go inside the high schools. And I was at the most intense high school where all the incidents were happening.
But how were you able to communicate? Did you speak English well?
Very little, very little.
And so you were really communicating with your camera. Did people take you seriously?
They didn't really know what I was doing. They had no idea. This was this guy, foreign guy with very bad English, you know, very poor vocabulary, and walking around with a camera inside the school. And they didn't like the idea in the first few days, but then they got used to it.
Yeah, because they probably just didn't even think much about it.
No, and
what
then
you were doing.
Yes, and then few students took interest in it and became a class project, and we finished. It was called Saudi, We Are Watching You.
So that was great.
That was it was an hour-long documentary. That was
Really?
my first film that I made.
That's fabulous. So you really did get an early start. I mean,
Yes.
listening to this, and
Yeah.
then coming, I know you did a TV, you produced and
Yes.
originated and co-founded Horizon, which is
Right.
on Armenian
True,
Is
yes.
it on Teletime?
No,
Armenian, what is it?
no, it's on KSCI, Channel 18.
But it's a Armenian.
Armenian
broadcast?
Yes, yes. It's the most successful Armenian program inside and outside of Armenia.
Do you still work on that?
No,
No, that
I
was
did
like-
it. I started it off with the help of so many people. We basically developed the program, how it should look like and what it
I
should
see,
contain and
the
all
creative.
of that. And then we had people, we trained them what to do, how to do. That's it. And then we just moved on.
But so after you went to graduate school, you went to film school, you did all of that, and then this was your first big. Was this the
Yes,
TV thing? Was the first really big thing?
No. As I was graduating from UCLA, I started this project, Chickpeas.
Oh, you did? You started it way back then?
Yes, and then we had financial problems. We stopped to continue again. During that time, I had to start editing whatever we had shot already.
Oh.
So, and since I didn't have money, this television thing was a great opportunity to go work, make money, and rent the editing equipment while I was doing something else. So my editor was working on the film for 12 hours a day. Then I would come home from my television work and spend until 3, 4 in the morning going over the film and making sure the cuts are okay and all that stuff.
So we have a clip. You brought us
Yeah.
into Chickpeas, which is
Right.
your first major full-length movie.
Yes.
And we have a clip from that. Can you just tell us a little bit what we're
Yes,
going to
the
see?
clip is about one of the strongest themes in the film is the mother and son relationship. And in this clip, we see the mother and the son having a very intimate conversation. She's paranoid about the possibility of assimilation of his son into an American society, and she's sad about not having her or remembering her past. It's the memory that immigrants live with. The big part of being immigrant is the memory of the past. So it's a scene that deals with these issues.
Okay, let's see it.
Yeah, let's watch it. It's a
Okay,
great scene.
great. Chick.
Այդախ չի գովել, ինչուս ինքի ետ խրկեցիր, հայ չէ,
Հայ,
Ըսե հայրեն չի գիտեր։ Ըսե, ես կուզեմ ախարսիս հետ հայրեն խոսիլ։
Ինչ արս մայրս, ինչ կխոսություն։
Անունը ինչ է։
Էլիզաբետ։
Ասել կուզես Եղսապետ։
Ոչ, Էլիզաբետ։
Կեր համով է։ Ափսոս չեր բերուտ, ինչ հաճելի էր։ Թուրս փնավ չեր կոցվեր։ Եգող կացողը սալամ բագաս։ Աս երկիրս իս սև հակցուց։ Հորդ գերեսմանը երբ պիդեր թանք։
Մամա գիրա քեզ բարև ունի։
Ուրիշ ինչ հսավ։
Ոչինչ։ Բայց այդ մարդը շատ մեծ ֆերան ունի։
Լրե, անիկա լավ մարդ մնե։
But it's the same thing. Every time a mother gets upset, she says, eat.
Yeah,
She pushes the
yes,
food in front of
yes.
him.
Food is a big part of bringing families together.
Yeah.
You know, the
Did-
members and yeah.
Did you direct it in Armenian or in English?
Well, I use both languages really with this kind of situation where the actors themselves are Armenian. But in what would happen is, see, they're not experienced actors. They all have different jobs and they don't have any training in acting, so they're not familiar with the terminologies.
Oh, I see.
So I would simplify, and sometimes I would ask them to imitate me. I would act a part out for them. It was a completely different style of directing that does not, you cannot use it with professionals.
You wouldn't use it again.
Well, if I make a film like this, I will. But no.
Did they only speak Armenian? Most of your most of the people who did the film?
Yes. They're English. There are parts in it that are in English in the film, and they speak as they speak English.
I see. What about a budget? Because you said you worked on it a long time.
Yes, the budget actually, it was initially budgeted to be somewhere about $100,000 from the whole thing.
With all the film and editing and
exactly, the music. But what happened soon as we went into production, we had complications, and then we discovered that the money we were promised was never there. And I realized that I had unknowingly started a production of a film with $5,000.
Oh my goodness, is that right?
Yes. And then we finished the shooting, then we stopped 6 months, we continued casting because not everybody was cast yet, find more locations, find more money, shoot again, have the film stay in the lab for months without knowing what I have shot, it's been exposed properly or underexposed, all these problems. Leave it there, get more money, get the film out of the lab, and just, so I financed it as we went on. That's why it became more expensive that way.
What about length of time from the very beginning, say when you were in school, you talked about it. How long did it take to get the finished product?
4 years and 8 months.
Wow. And then you have to do the distribution.
Distribution, publicize the film by going to festivals, and I've been lucky that the film was appreciated by the festival communities around the world, all major cities. That was very good.
It has been. It has taken off, and it really is the kind of film that'll play forever.
Right.
I think it can play forever.
Yes, it's
in
timeless.
art houses
Yes.
and the whole idea. Is it autobiographical?
No, it's collective biography. It's not just my, it's the biography of friends and family members and neighbors. All the stories I have heard, I've put it all together.
So it's really about people. It could be people from any country or any kind of immigrant. We have to leave, but very quickly, what's your next project?
Oh God, I'm trying to get the rights for a book I'm really very, very interested in, and I just finished the script that takes place, from 1947 in Stalin's Russia.
Those things.
Siberia and all the it's a story about a repatriate who goes back. Then he's accused as being a spy because he speaks English.
That's fabulous.
Yes.
So we're going to look for Nigol Bezjian. Thank you so much for being with us. Shad Shanorag Alim. And we'll keep looking for chickpeas.
Thank you.
Don't go away. Kim Abeles is coming on, and we have some of her work on the set. So we'll be right back. We're back. Joan Quinn, and I'm with artist Kim Abeles. Kim's work has been shown all over California. She has a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Ohio University and a master's degree from the University of California at Irvine. She has been commissioned by the Monte Carlo, Tele Monte Carlo in Italy, the Los Angeles Cultural Affairs Department, and by the California Arts Council. Much of her work centers around the environment. How did that happen, Kim?
It really started, let's see, it must have been in 1983. I was looking north on Broadway in downtown LA, and I saw the San Gabriel Mountains. And I had been downtown for many years and had never noticed the mountains. Of course, they're obscured by smog.
Right.
So I decided I would photograph every day from my fire escape and see how long it would take me to get a clear view again. And in fact, it took me a year and 2 months.
Is that right? Were you an artist at that point?
Yeah, I was an artist, and I guess as an artist, I'm always looking for a way to communicate to people things that you'd think are daily problems or daily ideas, but somehow there doesn't seem to be a typical way that we can articulate it.
That's what I was going to say. Can you put a name or a label on the kind of art that you're talking about?
Well, it's very conceptual art, but contrary to most art, which is about thought process or idea making, I'm very much an object maker.
Oh, so you actually do make an object that goes with the concept.
Right. In the case of all those photographs that I took, for instance, of the San Gabriels, eventually I housed them in a big walk-through bellows of a camera that a viewer could walk through and see all this documentation, and at the end of the camera were two lenses that would reduce the image of a 10-foot painting of my mountain wedge.
Is that right?
And then a second phase actually that I did of that project, I walked from that same spot on 2nd and Broadway to the foot of the San Gabriel Mountains, going as the crow flies though, so if I had to knock on doors and so on.
You went right through their houses?
Right, and people were fairly accommodating.
Did you actually do that through backyards? And
yeah, I mean, sometimes I would walk in wealthy neighborhoods and knock on a mansion door and I'd see my friends' paintings in the foyers.
You're kidding? Oh, that's fabulous. How long did that take? What kind of a walk was that?
Well, I went on a first smog alert day, which means unhelpful air quality for everyone. And took me about 10 hours to do it. It's 16.5 miles, and I was fairly beat up by the time I got to the end of that.
Did it all in one time.
Right, exactly.
When you talked about taking a year and how many days to see the mountain?
In 2 months, a year and 2 months.
A year and 2 months to see the mountains. Was that the end of the project?
No, only because by then I had such a commitment to that mountain wedge. I mean, it was like my mountain wedge, and it still is, so that aside from doing that second project with the walk, I wanted to have that mountain tattooed on me. And I remember that the tattoo guy wouldn't do it on my arm because he said that it would look like a wad of bubble gum if I had it tattooed on my arm, because you couldn't distinguish like what this wedge of mountain
But
was.
it meant something to you,
A lot,
didn't it?
Yeah.
So did you get it done?
No.
Do we have it?
No, we don't.
We
We're
can't
not
see
to
it?
show here.
Uh-oh, so we had to put it somewhere else?
But I think the point.
Oh, she's avoiding the question.
But I think the main idea is that I think that we live in a society right now where nature is something you have to go out and find. Like, where is it? Can you like let me in on the secret where we put it? And especially living in an urban area, if you do see nature, it's something that's really packaged and sort of given to you in a whole different form.
It's really true. It was when I was in Australia, we were just walking around and I went, oh, there's a butterfly, a monarch butterfly. I haven't seen that since I was a little girl. I mean, you know, you forget, and our kids have never seen those things.
Yeah, exactly. It's very
So
different.
you have to package them. One of the things that you do, or actually the thing that's the most talked about, are your smog collections.
Right.
Smog collecting. And you started telling us a little bit about that, but you've collected it in all different ways.
Right, and that really came out of that same idea of wanting to show someone something that you'd think they would know. It's always surprising to me when I've shown people in Southern California where the smog is so heavy, these smog collectors, they act like they've never seen smog before. And basically the process is that I cut a stencil and I cut out an image, typically a very photographic image, and I set it out on my rooftop for a period of time, and all the particulate matter in the air falls on it so that when the stencil's removed, the image is made out of the smog.
Oh, that's how it happens. I
Right.
wondered what you
Yeah.
did it and why you call it smog collecting.
Right, yeah. I mean, I have sort of this conceptual notion in my head that if I make enough pieces and collect enough smog, then you won't have to breathe it. Because
Oh,
I
yeah,
collected it
sure.
For you. You know, that's the artist
is what-
idealist.
This is what we're seeing on the screen
Right.
now.
And I've done projects with agencies like the Bureau of Automotive Repair in California that are in charge of our smog checks for our cars, and environmental groups have often had me make pieces that they could use for various purposes. It really became a language. I mean, I've done things like I did a series of presidential commemorative smog plates with all the presidents made out of smog.
Oh, yeah.
And quotes that they had about the environment and industry.
And this?
And this is a gas mask, which I think of more as a smog mask,
Right.
made out of smog, in fact. And now,
So you drew that image and the smog fell on top of it?
right, and when the stencil's taken off, there's, you know, the section that's protected and the section where all that particulate matter fell upon. And now really where it's gone is there are some 18 teachers in the LA Unified School District that are testing the use of this idea of smog collector as part of their curriculum to teach kids about the environment. And a lot of this has really turned out to be a learning tool for children, in fact.
We have a clock. I'm going to let
Right.
you hold it.
Yeah.
And if you hold it forward, they probably can pick it up.
This is a photograph of of a map of the world, in fact, made out of smog. And you can see from the shadow on it how thick that really is. I mean, particulate matter are very fine particles that have diesel, other types of oil products.
Very oily.
Yeah, metal, small chips of metal. There's even runoff from tires as tire hits pavement, and those small particles are part of it.
So
and
what
of
series
course, there's
is
a
this?
Liberty dollar.
Oh,
on
there's the
there.
Liberty dollar.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about it other than...
Well, I often, like, this is actually a cut dollar bill. I hope nobody from the federal government's watching this.
Yeah,
in
this-
a dollar sign on the second hand. And I mean, the idea of smog becomes a political issue because it's so tied up with business and money, in fact. So often I will incorporate the notion of currency with the image, in fact.
But you also have been an activist in I'm going to put this back because I just love this clock. You've been an activist in so many different ways too. You've worked on AIDS projects,
Yeah.
and I know you have a...
Yeah, this in fact was the latest project I did. I had received a grant from the Los Angeles Cultural Affairs Department to create an AIDS brochure, and because I had worked with traveling exhibitions on AIDS for a couple years, and I realized that the audience that I really wanted to reach were the rather unconvinced audiences, or the resistant person. So I designed this like a tarot card, and in fact it's perforated. There's on the back in English and Spanish is AIDS information, transmission prevention information, hotline numbers for more information, safer sex information, and so on. But I wanted to make this so that it was so compelling you would want to steal it.
And you want to keep looking, though, and
Yeah.
keep going on.
And it's small enough to fit into a back pocket. And in fact, I've run out of them.
What's the first one? Journey, the wheel.
Right. In the desire card, it's a sexual image. And in fact, I took great care because I wanted this to be able to work into the public school system. And I know there's such a resistance to talking about AIDS or having condoms in schools and so on. So the funny thing is about that desire card, I mean, it's a real sexual image, but you can't quite tell why it's explicit, so it has been able to be used in the public school system.
It's great. This is a wonderful idea. I didn't even understand what the what was behind it. You've also been an activist in women's issues.
Typically with women, I guess I have a tendency to want to do artworks about biographical portraits about women. I mean, anybody from Calamity Jane to Ethel Rosenberg, you know, quite a span.
To St. Bernadette.
To St. Bernadette,
Yeah, I
in
think
fact.
we have part of the St. Bernadette image, too, that we'll get on the screen.
Right.
And tell us a little bit about how that started. Does it have to do with religion, activist in religion, or just with the woman?
A little bit of both. The story of Bernadette really is so much about how a young woman that saw a vision became a commodity, and I think that's a typical story even into the 90s. I mean, Bernadette saw the Virgin Mary in the late 1800s, but I think the story is still the same. It's like, you know, you can't convince somebody of your vision for so long, and then as soon as somebody's convinced of it, there's somebody around the corner trying to make a buck off of it. So in the case of the piece on the right, it's a partial image of traveling sales. It's like a traveling sales bag holding all the paraphernalia for St. Bernadette.
And quickly, the Dead Sea Scrolls. We don't have any images of that, but just tell us a little bit about that.
I spent about 2.5 years doing work, again, to tell the story of the Dead Sea Scrolls and using sculpture to really relay a story in a very visual
the vessels.
way.
You drew the vessels that they were found in, because we just came back from Israel. So we were up at Masada, and we were by Qumran where they were found.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and the New York Library had an exhibit of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they showed the vessels and the whole area.
And see, again, it's sort of like as soon as the value is figured out, it's like everybody sort of tugs and pulls at them.
It's back again with the money.
Right.
Well, we don't have any time. We have to wrap,
Okay.
right? We have to wrap this. But I think one of the most interesting things was your encyclopedia.
This is the catalog from the 15-year survey by the Fellows of Contemporary Art, and it's done in the style of 60s World Book Encyclopedia.
And it has great information. I think everyone should go out and
Thank
buy
you.
this, and they'll know all about Kim Abeles and all about our environment. Thank you very much for being
Thanks,
with us.
Joan.
It was great.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.